Hello, I am here today with RUNA, and I just want to start off by thanking you guys for even just taking the time to come together to do this for Celtic MKE and to spend time with me this afternoon, evening to talk about your band. So I want to start off with a simple question that probably everybody always asks you. But it's always a good question to start things off. It's an icebreaker, but it's also a way for people who might be tuning in on our platform who may not have heard of you guys yet. So with that, my question is, this is RUNA. Can you tell me the story of how RUNA came to be, and through that talk about how, through your different backgrounds, how you guys were even able to come together and form as a band?
The long or the short version?
Whatever you want.
Or the short version.
Yeah.
It depends who answers.
I primarily wanted to, like, you connect it to why you guys are all performing music in the first place.
Okay. Well, we have all been performers in individual in our own individual rights and performing with many different bands. Fanon and I met in 2006 at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and I met Cheryl. Cheryl and I met around the same time through the Philly Folk Song Society, and but she didn't happen to meet Fanon at the same time. She knew who he was, but didn't meet him at the same time. And we were not romantically interested yet. Now we're married and have a kid and all that kind of stuff many years later. But he asked me to take a walk with him. We met at the performers party. We met at the performers party at the Philly Folk Fest. He asked me the next day, we saw each other on the festival grounds, and he said, "Hey, do you want to take a walk?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And he bought me a lemonade, and it was all, the rest is history after that. But we became friends. We kept in touch with one another, and I was working with a world music band at the time, and he was working with several different outfits, including Moya Brennan and Fiddler's Bid. And we were just chatting about kind of solo projects, and he said, "Have you ever been interested in doing one of those?" And I said, "I'd love to record some stuff that is just kind of Irish and Scottish song based." And he said, "Well, I have a studio in Dublin. You want to come record it there?" And I was like, twist my arm, best pickup line ever. But it worked. Clearly, it worked. So we went over about a year and a half later and started working on that project that was supposed to be a side project, and that very quickly became kind of the full-time project. And somewhere during that time frame, I had chatted with Cheryl, and she said, "Do you want a percussionist? I love Irish music. Have you ever played this music out? If you're ever touring and need a percussionist, I'm your gal," kind of thing. And so we performed at a bar in Philadelphia in August of 2008. And we just said, "Hey, Cheryl, you want to join us?" And so the three of us played to, I think, just like all of our immediate families in the area, and that was about it. And and it was a wonderful gig, but it was a first gig, and we all kind of looked at each other afterwards and just said musically, like, something was just really magical and really special, and we should do this again. And here we are, 12 years later, and we do this all the time. So it's good.
Something just seemed to click, right?
It did, and obviously, as well as anybody else, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff involved in terms of keeping a band going, but the music side of things is the magic of it and what keeps it going, which meeting the other two members of our band, that's the shortened version of, how the three of us got started and got touring. But we've had a couple different musicians play with us over the course of our 12 years together. And a lot of times we will meet them through other people, kind of just mutual acquaintances. We'll meet them at festivals. We'll meet them in jam sessions and develop relationships. And then, as the time comes around, say, "Hey, what do you think? Would you be interested in jamming with us?" Which is how these two guys came about as well, with Jake and Caleb. And I'm doing lots of talking with somebody else can jump into.
Well, actually, as Shannon was saying, over the years we've had several different musicians, like full-time for 4 or 5 years, that kind of thing. And the great thing about the different musicians is that they bring their own backgrounds, their own styles to the music. Originally, it was the three of us, Cheryl, myself, and Shannon. And then Tomoko Omura, who's a incredible jazz violinist, a Japanese girl who's studied at Berkeley, and she joined us for a few years, and she brought that influence. We really enjoyed having that sort of expanse from just the Irish stuff and expanding past that. So that gave us a sort of an interest in that. So anybody who was joining us after that, we kind of explored a lot of different sounds. So Caleb, who plays mandolin now, he's a bluegrass aficionado, absolutely incredible bluegrass player, and Jake James on the fiddle is an incredible Irish fiddle player. So all the styles kind of mix together to give us the sound that we have, and it's really great.
And that's something I wanted to bring up in this conversation today too, is that when going through your catalog of music, I went through your entire discography because I like doing things like that. One of the things that really struck out to me was the fact that you guys as a band are so diverse in the types of folk music that you bring into your repertoire, but the way you do it, there is a uniformity to it. So you guys are diverse in the sense that you guys have done British folk ballads, Irish folk tunes, Gaelic songs, Scottish folk songs, American folk even, and traditional Irish songs, and yet you find a way to bring all of those different pieces together into your own style. And I can't help but wonder, how do you stay consistent with that? Because that's such a variety, and it's not only impressive, but it just kind of shows that you guys know what you're doing as a band, and you know what your style is, and you know what your direction is.
Well, it's called runifying a song. That's what we call it. It's true.
It's the same thing. We have the core. Cheryl, myself, and Shannon have obviously been, since the very beginning, been together as the core sound in the band. And I think anybody who comes in, we're totally open to them, just musically influencing everything. But I don't think you can ever sort of wash away the sort of the bedrock of everything, and nor would we want to. But we always wanted to expand past just the three of us kind of playing out some songs. And that's what's amazing about the likes of Caleb and Jake and the guys who've been in the band before them. When they play their style and they influence what we do, it really pushes us past just playing our own thing. But the bedrock is always there. You can't get rid of it.
I think that's something too, is that, you know, we never set out to be like just one style of band. We set out to be ourselves, and I think that's something that has helped us as we're kind of approaching different songs and saying, okay, how do we want this song to sound? You know, it's been performed by so many other, you know, musicians, recorded by so many other bands previously. How do we want it to sound? We want it to sound different, but it has to serve the song, and however we approach it, the song is what kind of directs us, you know, to find those different things. And we'll try lots of different things. And sometimes we're like, oh yeah, this is great. And other times we fall flat on our face and say, okay, moving on and trying something different. But I think it's something that, you know, we've always just tried to sound like ourselves as opposed to sound like something else. We just always, you know, try to bring ourselves to the music first.
Well, our instrumentation is also a little different. Obviously, bluegrass mandolin, and Caleb can speak to that, but the percussion that I play is not usually known in a Celtic band. It's more, you know, hand percussion, African drums type of thing, and I have a bit of a Middle Eastern music background, so I kind of bring that to it, and that just, I think, sets us apart from other Irish bands, I think.
I agree. I agree. It's very evident, and I love that about you guys.
Well, thanks for saying that.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd imagine too that a lot of research and time goes into picking and testing music that gets added to your repertoire. Am I right?
Shannon. Yeah. Shannon's the man when it comes to that.
Lots and lots of hours. I mean, we all bring different things to the table, but it does, and we appreciate that, you know, people like you know those kinds of things and recognize those kinds of things, because it's, you know, whether it's research into the history of the song or the styles of music from where the song is originally from, and the story that it tells, or just the research that we've all done individually over our entire lifetimes, you know, which when you add it up is a lot of years collectively, you know, and because we're all from very different geographical backgrounds, you know, three of us are from the United States, Charles from Canada, Fanon is from Dublin, Ireland, but we all have not just different geographical backgrounds, but different musical interests and musical backgrounds, and we all bring all of those things to the table, so that it's and it's the research that goes into all of that on top of the research that goes into the songs that we're performing as well. And a lot of those songs have traveled over the course of history, so delving into that, like I said, whatever musically serves the song at the end of the day. But in order to do that really well, and try to do that really well, there's a lot of things, a lot of time goes into that research ahead of time. And, to bring the detail to that, you have to put a lot of that time into it, to even kind of test all those things that are going on.
And unfortunately this year was supposed to be our year of developing music with Caleb and Jake, because when they came and joined the band early last year, they were sort of, let's play the repertoire that we have right now and let's expand a little bit, but let's make sure we can play a concert. And then we played all these concerts last year and they were great. And then this year was supposed to be a big year of developing music. Caleb's an amazing songwriter and Jake, amazing tune writer. So we were going to combine all that and possibly do a new album, which we're looking forward to doing next year. But this was the year to do it. And of course, COVID hit. So
we'll be doing
we're
lots more virtually.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe Jake and Caleb could speak into what it's like to come into, the established setup and try to bring a bit of their sound to what we already had. If it was good or a bad thing, I don't know, but that's what they had to do.
Sure. I think that I think RUNA is Fanon, Shannon, and Cheryl. That's RUNA. And what's cool about that is that, over the 12 years, they've had several people that have come in and out of the band, and they, just by being so inclusive, make them RUNA too. So it's kind of it's this really beautiful relationship where this just happens in folk circles where you have a lot of musicians who are kind of clingy to tradition, and that's their right, and all for it. That's what makes it last forever. But there's also there's a sense of evolution that has to happen in folk music for it to survive. And so what I've noticed with these three is that they very much are welcome to someone else playing their style of music and making it their own. When they called me, they said, we're an Irish band. And I said, I don't do that. It's not, everything that I do is not that. So even when we play at Celtic festivals and I'm teaching a mandolin workshop, I'm just like, I don't know why I'm doing this, because what I do is so different. And I remember kind of freaking out, not getting a lot of sleep, because I called Fanon multiple times and I said, I don't do this. In fact, what you do on the guitar is probably more in tune to what I do on the mandolin. He said, that's fine.
That's why we love you.
And so I couldn't see it at the time. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm flattered, obviously, but I don't understand why. And I think that first few months of touring together was really the nice nuts and bolts of it, and starting to feel each other out personally and musically, and discovered that it's actually a really beautiful relationship between, honestly, a bunch of people that shouldn't really even know each other.
Right, that's interesting. I think I'm going to cry now, Caleb.
Well, there's always been a Celtic tie to bluegrass music too. Yeah. So it's not foreign in the sense that there are elements to bluegrass that tie into Irish music. But I think that's the beauty of folk music in general, is that folk music is all about storytelling. And with that, it can be and should be open for interpretation. And so that enables you guys to put your own spin on it then, because you're taking a story that's out there and you're interpreting it yourselves and you're retelling the story in your own way.
Yeah. A friend of ours who's a DJ up in Boston, Brian O'Donovan, had put it really, really well, kind of both the roots and the branches of a tree. If you look at that kind of metaphor, the roots are where all the tradition for, Ireland, Scotland, and the UK, and that's where a lot of this music is based from. And so you want to stay true to those roots, as Caleb was saying. You want to just respect the tradition and where it came from and hold on to that, because if you lose that, then you kind of lose the essence of what you're playing. But you need to grow with it as a tree grows and kind of spread out to where all those branches have traveled to, you know, whether it's the United States, different parts of the United States, up to Canada, whether it's, you know, mixing with cultures from Latin America, from different parts of Europe, and then going into Africa as well. A lot of the rhythms, a lot of the intervals are very similar to other cultures, and a lot of that just has to do with massive amounts of migration that happened, especially during the 19th century. And so it seems like everything should be very foreign, but a lot of times it's a lot more similar than you think it is, which is how all of us kind of feel as human beings. You know, let's find the similarities between everybody rather than the differences. And so when we're able to achieve that in the music itself, it's kind of an extra special thing for us, you know, and a different way to illustrate that.
And I say it a lot, like where you know, we travel. Well, I've traveled the world extensively with different groups, and the amazing thing about the interest in Irish music and and the roots and branches and where it's gone over the years. And you know, I think Jake was in diapers when we started this band, but to have somebody of his age, the next generation, born and raised in New York. Be so interested in Irish music and have such an incredible talent already built into his system, even though he has, you know, the connection isn't there directly. And I don't know what Jake made of coming into a band like this, but he's the All-Ireland fiddle champion a few years ago. You know, just unbelievable stuff for an American to beat out all the Irish guys. So, you know, I don't know, Jake, what did you think of all of that?
Yeah. You know, like Caleb said, it's like you guys are RUNA, you know, Cheryl, Shannon, Fanon, that's RUNA, and it's just a beautiful thing to just come in and be kind of on top of that, bedrock of just like a whole personality, you know, and just to kind of join that personality and like you can still be yourself and bring your background and bring your naivete to that. It's just a really cool.
And you have plenty of that. So.
If anything, too, it keeps things fresh, right?
I'm sorry, say that again? I
said, if anything, too, I think that helps keep things fresh, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I never know what to expect. Like
You know what, Jake, you are RUNA. You are RUNA, Jake.
Melissa, what is great about meeting people like Jake and Caleb and their enthusiasm for giving it a shot is that that's what we were always open to, was giving it a shot. Mm-hmm. And so the combination of all of that is much more positive than negative. You know, no matter when we fail with stuff, we very rarely do, because everything is just fun and interesting. And these guys and the collective, unfortunately, we haven't toured as much as we've wanted since, you know, a year and a half ago since we started. But things were picking up, things were going great, and the music was really just re-energizing us, especially the three of us. Yeah. You know, 12 years in, 6 albums, lots of different music, traditional and some original stuff. And Caleb's great, as I said, great songwriter, and Jake an amazing tune writer. So between the two of those, we were just looking to expand a lot of what we had already kind of built upon. So hopefully next year we'll get going with that again, and you know, we'll expand what we have.
I think that's another great thing about folk music too, is there's the storytelling component to it, which people connect with, and there's the history side of it as well, and you're keeping that history going by preserving it. But there's a community aspect to it. That's why people love the festival so much. That's why people love the music so much. There's just something there that, whether it's just the band themselves, if you guys all connect and you guys are a family, but then you're also a family in your community with your fans too. And I think a lot of that stems from folk music in general and the connection that it gives to everyone who listens to it.
Well, as you know, our fans are called runatics, and they're called runatics for a reason. Right?
I love that.
I don't know if they do, but
yeah, I know.
I think you're right. I think it's why everybody is feeling just a massive void this year, specifically in going to listen to music and of all kinds. Is that it's not just the sound of music, you know, and what you watch up on stage, but it is the community that it draws the community that comes to see the band, the community within the band, and then the community, you know, as a whole. And it kind of feels like it's been put on pause, and, you know, we've been kind of robbed of that this summer. And where the online side of things, the virtual side of things, as daunting as it seems, or playing to a camera and, you know, you're like, hello, nobody's out there, you know, there is something that's pretty incredible about the fact that we are still able to, even though we can't be physically together, we're able to still share that with one another and share that community, you know, because, and this is just speaking for the two of us, and I think for these guys too, but they can speak into it as well. Being, you know, it's one thing to be on your own, but if this had been, you know, 20, 30 years ago, this specific period would have felt incredibly, just drastically different.
Yeah.
We are still able to speak to one another. We're still able to keep in contact with our fans. We're still able to share music.
Yeah.
It's just an unbelievable, just even concept that we can do that, let alone that we're able to continue that. We're able to not just perform, you know, a video or a concert, we're able to carry on festivals, you know, and lots of the different aspects, not just the music side of that, but lots of the different aspects, culturally, community-wise. And that is just a really tremendous thing. And I think that really is a testament, as you were saying, to folk music in general and what that brings. You know, it tends to bring out the best in everybody. And the fact that we were still able to continue to celebrate all of that is just, to me, that's just a really remarkable thing. As frustrating as it gets sometimes on a daily basis, like, I just want to play with these guys again.
Yeah.
You know, we are still able to do some of that. We're also still able to be creative together and to feel like we still have that community around us at the same time, which is just, it's a weird dichotomy, but it's a really wonderful dichotomy at the same time.
And with organizations such as yours and the Milwaukee Irish Festival and the other festivals, it's just an incredible thing that you've all reached out to the musicians and you want to support the musicians, and we want to support the festivals so that they keep going. And it's a one big happy family.
I think it shows how much we are a community because we all want to support each other. But it's also something where I think we're learning from each other too, because we're all in the same boat of having to adapt to the current climate and find ways to not only stay relevant, but to try to thrive in the current climate too. And I think that can be overwhelming sometimes.
No question.
Well,
Very overwhelming.
the great thing about, if there is a great thing about this, is that it's affecting everybody simultaneously. Because if somebody has an illness on the inside, or if somebody has a family member who's got some, you know, other people feel sympathetic, but they don't really know what you're going through because they don't see it. You know, the arm hasn't been chopped off. They don't see your blood coming. You know,
Right.
they're like, oh, that's tragic. But, and then they get on with their lives. Everybody has been affected by this. So there's a deeper sense of understanding as to what's going on here. And so many businesses are you know, in serious trouble. The whole events industry is in so much trouble. That's why there's such like a bubble of support going around to try to just buoy this to the next level of just recovery together. And hopefully, you know, this time next year we won't be talking about it anymore. It won't be a thing. But, you know, I just think that mutual understanding is just so unprecedented. You know, people always go through struggles, but if the other person isn't going through a similar struggle, then there's no real understanding of just how badly that's affecting you, you know. And so it's a really nice thing. If there is a nice thing, is that everybody's kind of feeling this on some level at the same time simultaneously. So
well, and I think it's nice too, you know, the kind of thing you were talking about, Melissa, in terms of the festival and community feeling and the relationship with the musicians too. I think it's something that's really important to remember is that, you know, we all, like, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling really positive. We're all chatting here. We're, you know, it's productive. We're actively doing something creatively at the moment. You know, there are just as many days where I look at everything and just go, oh man, this is really, really hard and really, really rough. You know, for the first several weeks, you know, it was kind of like, I just need a breath from everything to kind of, you know, it was a mourning process of what was going on. And there are still days that happens. And I know we've talked to fellow musicians and friends who felt very, very similar that, you know, just creativity is just not where you want to be. You know, you're being pulled in 500 different directions and you're just like, music is not helping today. And then you'll wake up the next day and say, this is the only thing that's going to get me through to the end of the day. And I think that there is a remarkable sense of that community feeling and community spirit of all the different bands and all the different festivals are trying to kind of buoy one another and pull one another together to help each other get to the other side. It's not just about, oh, well, we'll make it through, and as long as we can make it through, that's fine. It's everybody needs to make it through this together so that we can all move forward together in order to be able to get to the other side. Because if anybody's left behind, then we're all kind of left behind, you know. And if we all continue to have that feeling and continue working together, there's just something that's really special about that, that everybody seems to have that same feeling, that we all want to kind of help each other out. You know, everybody's going to have bad days, everybody's going to have good days. And so if you're having a good day, pick somebody else up and, you know, and move forward with that. And so hopefully when you're having a really hard time, somebody else will help you continue to move forward too. And that's just something that, you know, I don't know that happens in lots of other circles and lots of other, you know, businesses in that sense, but there's something that's really, really gorgeous about that, you know, that is within this community to try and keep everybody going forward to get to the other side of everything.
So with that, do you guys feel any pressure at all to have to consistently be out there on social media to stay relevant and to produce content in a way? Like, I feel like there's this pressure that if you're a band, oh, what a wonderful time to be able to work on new music. But I also see it as this is also a time where you're going through 1,000,001 other things too outside of music, and it's also a time to actually take care of yourself and maybe focus on that first. So like, are you guys balancing that at all, or how is RUNA getting through that?
I've got this. There's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and you go online, you see a lot of things, a lot of words being said, and I think I can speak for all of us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, where I don't think you'll see anything from RUNA, anything less than the most truest, honest thing that we can come up with, and whether that's musical or whatever, I think anything less than that, we're not going to mess with it.
Yeah, you should never feel like you have to force yourself as a band to do something.
Yeah, well, we've never really felt like that. That's what we were talking about earlier with the music. We've never felt like we had to be compartmentalized into this, that, or the other. And I think when this hit, if anybody said anything, it was me. And I said, we are not going to fill the airways with just stuff. It doesn't serve the purpose of what we do or how we do it. And it's also never been our style to just constantly barrage. And that's not saying that when other people have been doing that, there's anything wrong with it. It's just not been our style. And I think that, as Caleb said, that's true to our form. You know, we've done a few things, select things specifically for the festival that Cheryl organizes in Goderich, Canada. And they asked us to do, it was the first festival where they kind of said, you know what, we're going to go virtual. We're going to do this thing. Can you guys put together a concert? We hadn't done that kind of thing before as a band, and it was very exciting, but it was also a huge amount of work because we realized just how little of it we had done. And in doing so, we realized that the music that we made was great, and this is not something that we're going to do every day, every week, or even every month. But when somebody asks us to do a specific purpose and nothing to do with money or anything, it's great to do it. And also found that, you know, early on realizing that what's going to happen is everybody is in this same boat. So every single artist is going to find themselves trying to find a way through this. And the reward versus the effort, and also then what people, you know, how that gets received it was all just unprecedented. So nobody really knew. But my take on it was, let's just take a pause. Let's just see how this unfolds. And also musically, maybe we can, maybe we won't use it as a time. It doesn't matter, but it's not going to be something that we're going to be forced to do by anybody else. Or the suggestion that if we're off the air for 6 months, then we're done as a band. Quite the opposite. Every time we've done a few of these concert series or festival collaborations with the band, every one of us has said to each other, that was great. It was really, it was so much fun. It was re-energizing. It was this, that, or the other. As opposed to, it's a chore every 4 days, we're getting more songs to do, you know, and what's the point? It's just going up and it's just going to be consumed and then moving on, you know. So I think less is more for this band, and we've definitely benefited a lot. And as I say, next year we are looking forward to doing, you know, a few projects, but particularly an album of new material or newly arranged material. And that's something to look forward to, as opposed to we've killed ourselves for this whole, you know, being off the air time, and just and you know, in an effort to try to just keep up with all of that online content, you know, quantity over quality, we've sort of gone the opposite way, and hopefully next year we'll be able to just flourish with being able to collaborate and just enjoy it, as opposed to be kind of saturated with ourselves. You know?
Well, and as you said before, every project needs, you know, a lot of research time, you know, to have it be meaningful and have it be what we actually want it to be. And so we've got, as Fanon was alluding to, we've got a couple of different projects that we are either in the midst of or at the beginning of working on. And it's harder, you know, to get things started when it's virtual, but you want to give, you know, even if we were on the road, we would be giving this kind of time to anyway, you know, and we had some of those things allotted for this year, and not just for, you know, a couple months, but this entire year. And so rather than trying to kind of squish some of those in unnaturally, we've been, you know, allowing them the time and the space, and some of them might wind up taking a little longer. Some of them might wind up just happening a bit more easily because of all the different factors, you know, and it just every situation is different. But I think Fanon's right. I think that, you know, taking that breath allows us to be rejuvenated, to be creative again, rather than, you know, just kind of saying, okay, we have to kind of, you know, push everything to the wall and really just try to produce everything. You know, I think it's important that you take that breath to be creative.
That being said, we did cram, when we were on the road in February, we did cram a load of video shoots into our time together. And the wonderful thing about that is that we've been able to take some time in these last few months to edit all that and start putting together some music videos. So that was really great that we managed to get them in before we got the axe. So.
That's why you're not seeing anything from us now, is because we did it all.
We're
exhausted.
It's a good thing though to make time to do things right. That's always the route to go in the end, and it always just shows that it's the right thing to do, because it's going to show in the end product no matter what it is that you guys are doing. So with that, you guys have some music videos coming out that I'm assuming those were shot in February?
Yes.
They were.
Yeah. And the one that you shared a sneak peek of with me, New Orleans, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The very first shot, I was just like, New Orleans. Yeah. And I thought that was absolutely great. But it made me want to ask, so when it does come time to you guys wanting to do your next music video, how do you know which song that you want to do and where you even want to film it? Because that was very shocking to me in a good way. It was very fun to watch, but and that's a good thing, but I just like, how do you think about things like that?
Well, Shannon's always wanted to do a video in New Orleans, period, end of discussion. And so we chose a song that would work out perfectly. It was purposely done, right, Shannon?
Yeah, because we filmed 2 videos while we were down there, and being honest, probably one that we'll wind up putting out later is the one that kind of pushed us to be in New Orleans for the Lakes of Pontchartrain, because the Lake of Pontchartrain is there, and we're just like, oh, this would be amazing, this is beautiful. But the one that is going to be coming out very, very soon, Buttermilk Sky, is it's just really fun. It's really bubbly. It's a Hoagie Carmichael song that's just, it's a quirky little kind of ditty of a song, but it's just, it's so much fun. It's really light, and it's kind of funny when we're talking about folk music. So much of the folk music is, you know, just, it can be heavy and intense, and, you know, murder ballad after murder ballad after, you know, this, that, and the other. And so this song was brought to the band by one of our former band members, and it was originally kind of like more that kind of Western swing feel, and it just kind of really slow. And we all kind of looked at each other, we're like, okay. And we said, what if we give this a kind of like Lindy Hop or Jitterbug kind of feel, and just like really kind of that like 30s into 40s swing feel, and speed it up a little bit? What would that sound like? And almost like a Django Reinhardt or like a cartoon Cab Calloway kind of feel to it. And we started just messing with it. We said, oh, this is so much fun. We have to do this. And so ever since then, since we even talked about being down in New Orleans, we're like, we have to do this, and we have to be running around the city, and we have to, like, all of these different kind of images just started coming up. And I think the colors, and, you know, for anyone who's been to New Orleans, you get that kind of atmosphere, that just party festive atmosphere. And this song just seemed to match that in many, many ways. And we just said, how do you just capture that feeling. And generally speaking, because we're a folk band and we're not, like we are on budget for almost everything that we do, we were fairly efficient and economical with how we filmed throughout that day. So we've been doing a lot of research and spent a lot of time kind of looking into some of the different places online. And then a couple of us went ahead of time earlier in that week to where we shot the whole thing. And so by the time we were ready to shoot it, we said, okay, we have, half an hour to shoot this clip, and we're running across the city to go film this clip, and then this clip and this clip. And by the end of it, like, we really felt like we had just kind of covered the entire French Quarter. And we just had so much fun in spite of it being an absolutely freezing day outside.
Well, as Shannon said, like, part of the thing to do is in folk music, it is kind of heavy and straight or whatever, depending on the song. And what's great about the personalities, everyone in this band is just light and easy, and that kind of song and New Orleans and those colors and that pop, and there's a whole section in the middle where we're just being goofy, and that sort of encapsulates the idea of how we go about being together. It's not too serious. It's work. We do it really well. We try to be as professional as possible, but it's also supposed to be fun, and music's supposed to be fun, and it is for us a lot of the time. But this video kind of it helped us just do all those things in a short space of time, very, very precisely. But it was nice and natural and fun, as much as you can be behind a camera. So it's great.
Yeah, I definitely sensed that. It was super fun. It got in my head right away after I listened to it. And that was the first time I've heard that song from you guys before. So it was really cool to have that first listening experience. And then there's just this automatic association, and it just registered in my head. So I think that's how others are gonna react to it as well when they see it. It is very fun, like you said. So I think you guys did a phenomenal job on it. With that, I did get a pop-up from Zoom saying they were giving me a little bit more time as a gift for being a first-time Zoom user. So
Yay!
I'm going to ask a couple more questions, just because these are more questions that I personally really want to know, and it kind of digs into your past a little bit. So sorry, Shannon. One thing that really stood out to me when I was researching your guys' discography and the music is that, like, for example, I wrote down The Last Trip Home, which is a Scottish song by the Battlefield Band. The writer, Davy Steele, he passed soon after he wrote that song, which then inspired Kate Rusby to write her song, Who Will Sing Me Lullabies, because he was a family friend. And I just had no idea. And when I listened to it again after learning that, there was even more of an emotional connection to it, even though I don't know Kate Rusby and I didn't know Davy Steele. Again, that just goes to the whole folk storytelling component. And there's so many different songs that you guys do where I feel like those stories really come to life. Like John Riley, which is based on a true story of an Irish soldier who immigrated to the United States and fought in the Mexican-American War on the Mexican side. And just, it's amazing to me that there are so many stories out there waiting to be told, even in an original sense, like your guys' original song, The Ruthless Wife, that was written about your great grandpa.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it just amazes me, like how you guys are able to find those songs that are really rich in the story itself and how you bring it to life. And
Scandal.
It looks so easy. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, but it's more or less a comment for me, but it's just something that I admire a lot about you guys as a band in terms of your repertoire and your style.
Thank you.
It's a huge compliment.
It is indeed.
Thank you.
One of the things that we have, the three of us anyway, Shannon, myself, and Cheryl, and I hope the other guys would agree. In terms of quality control, people always say, you guys should do more original material, you guys do. And when we have the likes of Caleb and Jake, writing tunes and songs that are of such quality, it's easy to slot them in, regardless of the style, because we'll sort of like runify it or whatever. But overall, the overall arc is there's such an incredible well of traditional music and also recently composed music. Like the John Riley song was written by Tim O'Brien, and the theme, obviously the story existed, but he wrote this great song, and that's our version of it, and that exists across all folk music, all genres of music, where you can kind of say, well, look, that's just a great song, you know, could we do a nice version of it? But in the traditional world, there's so many amazing songs which they've lasted the test of time because they're great songs. So for us to kind of be told all the time, you guys should do your own stuff, you know, you've been involved in writing this, that, and the other, and it's all great, you should do more. It's to get something to the standard of those amazing songs. It's not just a lot of pressure. It's also just like, what's the point? You know, you can easily research and develop a great melody or a great lyric and do your own, you know, a modern take on it. And it's doing it justice. And then, you know, to have spent all the time writing a song to try to emulate, which a lot of people do, like, that's a great song, I'm going to write that differently. And then it's going to be, you know, our own take on that story. And it's just so difficult to do because the material that's been there for centuries is so good that, you know, you don't necessarily want to go competing with that. If something comes naturally, or if you've got great writers who do stuff differently, then it's great. But to write within the genre where you've got so many amazing songs, it's actually doing the research and spending that time on that and doing those songs justice in our kind of modern interpretation is a lot more rewarding, I think, than sitting down and penning our own version of the same story again, you know. So that's my take on it anyway.
And I was going to say too, you know, in conjunction with that, and then in the songs that we choose to do, whether it's research and choose it or write it ourselves, I think that when it comes down to it, people are the same, whether they're today or whether they're 300 or 400 years ago. We're writing about the same things. We're singing about the same things. We're feeling the same things over the course of time. And I think that from the get-go, Fanon and Cheryl and myself, and then these guys, since they joined the band, we're really interested in finding how to make some of those stories relatable, but also not to choose always the mainstream story, but kind of the story that hasn't been told either yet or as frequently, you know, and how do we bring that kind of to the foreground? Because when you are choosing a song, you know, or writing a song, you say, well, why this story right now? It's like, you know, when you pick up a book or when you're ready, you know, you're writing a story, choose a point in time that's going to catch the reader, but you have to say, well, why now? Why are you starting the story here? You know, and inviting the reader in, or the listener in at this specific point. What makes that point so important or so exciting? And so when we're choosing the songs that we go after, so to speak, I think that speaks a whole lot into it, and why, you know, we pick a song like a John Riley and say, well, that's kind of, he's on not quite the winning side of this story in terms of who's fighting, you know, on the battlefield, but in terms of where he's kind of landed internally, he's fighting for the side that he feels he should be fighting for. And so, you know, whether it's a winner or a loser or an underdog or however you want to look at it, you know, you look at where they're coming from as a person internally and saying, you know, what story are they saying? What message do they have to say? And bringing that kind of to the forefront. And we've done a couple of songs like that have those kind of connections, whether it's The Last Trip Home and Who Will Sing Me Lullabies, where if you don't know it, they're two really lovely songs and they have their own individual stories. But if you know the link between the two of them, all of a sudden you go, whoa, and, you know, you kind of have that moment. You know, The Holy Ground, and will blow your mind again too, if you don't know this, The Holy Ground and John Riley are actually the same story, but they're it's kind of, one is told from that really kind of gritty, more reality-based side of things in John Riley, where The Holy Ground is an absolutely gorgeous Jerry O'Byrne song, but it's kind of looking at it through a more poetic side of things and kind of a rose-colored side of things, where you listen to just say, oh, that's a beautiful story, but if you actually know kind of the through line, you know, you can get a side of things that you might not have seen before. And, you know, obviously we love, you know, we did, I think it was our third or fourth album, where we realized like 2/3 of the songs were all kind of like really strong, hardcore, feminist kind of songs from, from the 17th and 18th centuries. And we're like, I would be up on stage and it would be 3 of us were girls and the other 2 guys. I'm like, this side of the stage really like this. And so, we look for those interesting stories, and some of the projects that we're working on right now, which are probably going to be a combination of traditional material as well as some of the stuff is going to be composed by the band. We're working on a couple of projects where we're trying to tell some stories that are not necessarily mainstream. We had an absolutely remarkable experience in January, just before we went to New Orleans, where we were in Durant, Oklahoma, with the Choctaw Native American tribe. And it's a group of people that some people have become more familiar with recently, especially with the pandemic, and kind of returning gifts across what's going on right now. But in 1847, the Choctaw people made a huge donation of money over to the Irish Famine Relief Fund. And coming from a group that just experienced the Trail of Tears, had absolutely nothing to give, but they gave what very little they had to people that they would never meet before or never meet again in life. And they just knew these, the people in Ireland were struggling, and they knew that struggle. And so they decided to make this absolutely remarkable humanitarian gesture. And we were also inspired by this story back in October of this past year, that we said, wouldn't this be a remarkable experience to write a song or to write and work on a project of music, and to see what comes of that and develop some of the stories. And we went and met with for 2 days, spent 2 absolutely spectacular days with members of the tribe. We were greeted by I think it was over 100 elders greeted us, and we spent the day with them, talking to them about their culture, about their history, going on a historic tour, not just of that specific area, but all the way across the state with them, and with some of their historians, and learning about not just their history as a people, but their individual histories with their specific families, and that kind of trust and honor that we were shown to be led into that is kind of how we view the music that we choose all the time, that it's not just the broad scope of history that you read in history books, but it's the individual stories that actually make up the community that continues throughout history. And so we're working on a project within the band, but also in conjunction with them, to try and tell some of their stories and the stories around that specific donation, to open that kind of window up to people who might not know that story before, and tell it from some different perspectives than they may have heard that particular history before. And I think that just kind of, that specific project kind of demonstrates how we try to look at music in general when we're choosing things. And I know that's kind of a roundabout way of saying it, or a long-winded way of saying it, but that is, we like to choose those stories that people just might not be as familiar with, but that doesn't mean that they're any less important than some of the other stories that have been out there for a really long time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful too. Again, it goes back to the whole folk community. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. There's just this connection that we have with each other.
Yeah,
and that's a perfect example of it too. I will end this interview with, since we've kind of been talking a lot about what music means to us and what folk music means to us, and the stories behind it, I'm curious to know from each of you, which song of RUNA's really resonates with you the most? Like, is there one in particular that has just, every time that you perform it, or every time you hear it when you're going back and looking at things, that it just always evokes some sort of like emotion or memory?
Wow.
I'm sorry.
No, that means we have to remember titles.
Well, it's a good thing Jake and Caleb only know the new.
Yeah.
They only know the current repertoire, so they only have like 20 songs to play.
Is it easier for you two to choose?
Oh, that's a really great question.
It is a really good question. I don't think anybody's asked that.
I'd probably say Saints and Sinners. It's usually when we play it, it's got a very singable chorus. So by the end, you have a whole sea of people that are singing along. which is it's just a very simple and humanistic, song. And so to hear a whole crowd of people from all different parts of life singing that together is almost a religious experience. It's very cool. I like that. It's one of my favorites for sure.
Good one.
Here, here.
Yeah, I love those instances too.
Me too.
Huggabear is a great one too.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Huggabear is a great one.
No, I love how that came together. I barely remember when we put it together. I don't remember putting it together because it just came so easily. Like that, it was almost meant to be. Like,
It's one of my favorites right now too. Can you explain that, Fanon?
There's a song. There's a song that we didn't actually perform it live very much, but we did it a few albums back, called "The Dreadful End of Mariana for Sorcery," and it's written by Karine Paulworth, Scottish singer-songwriter who's incredible. And the images that she creates in the song are just incredible, and the story is so strong and so crazy. And to think that those kind of things happened all the time in
That's a good one.
that was always one of my favorites. And certainly Liam, our son, who's 2 years old, he loves the RUNA catalogue, but he particularly likes watching everybody 20-30 times a day. He watches the band all day. It's infuriating. But when we go to the car, when he's pretending to drive, he puts RUNA on the radio. And he insists on no, not that one, not that song, this one. And so the hard drive in the hi-fi in the car has all of the albums on it. So he flicks through.
Good grief.
And when that song comes on every time, that's the one that I think catches my ear.
Which one?
The Dreadful End of Mariana.
You're kidding. That's incredible.
Not have guessed that one for you.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Do you want to go, Sharon?
I was talking about when Jake was talking about Huggabear. Oh, hold on. Are we losing me?
Nope,
No.
I gotcha. Oh,
Maybe.
No. I'll be back. There I am.
Come back.
I'm back. No, I was saying, can you explain what Jake meant by Huggabear?
Huggabear is the internal name given to a song that we just started playing, that we arranged in New Orleans. It's a Scottish mouth music song called Hugad Ivunad Void, and it basically is talking about this guy Donal and his bonnet. And it's one of those classic mouth music songs where it's sung quickly, it's sung rhythmically, and there are some words that just sort of jump out. And Hugad Ivunad Void somehow got misinterpreted on the ear of those who weren't really paying attention, and it sort of sounded a bit like Huggabear. And when you see it written down, there are a lot of letters that just don't make any sense to an English speaker, and side by side, and some of them jump out. You might excuse somebody for thinking it's
Especially us non-Gaelic speakers.
Exactly.
Actually, my favorite song, well, not one of my favorite songs, and is Dance in the Graveyard, because I just love.
You stole mine.
Yeah, sorry. I love how it feels. I dance to it when I listen to it.
Yep. All the time. I absolutely second and third and fourth and fifth.
Yeah.
That song for me and Holy Ground for some of the reasons that I said before are two of my all-time favorites. And Dance in the Graveyard we heard a couple of years ago, and we just kind of every time we brought it up, Cheryl and I were like, we have to do this song. We love this song, and just that circle of life and just celebrating. Doesn't matter what your background, just to continue dancing, to continue celebrating. And every time it comes on, I'm up and dancing. And you guys didn't see when we were recording, we were all in kind of different rooms at the house where we were recording down in Cape May, New Jersey. My grandparents have a house, and we were in our different rooms, and I was doing my vocals, and then we go into the tune at the end, and nobody could see me, but I was pregnant with Liam at the time, so like I've got this big belly. It was in January, February, and I'm dancing at the end like this.
No, there was a camera on you the whole time. We didn't tell you there was a camera. Yeah.
behind the scenes.
It's the secret
Rare
tape.
footage.
Just kidding.
That's sweet. Well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to be on this Zoom call today and for letting me interview you.